And we're back.
And we're back, everybody. Straight from Resurrections.
So, hello, everyone. Here we are back for another week. As you can see, there's 4 of us. Oh, my goodness, it's growing. So let me introduce everybody. On my screen, at least in the top left, we have Reverend James Pike, who serves Resurrection in Huntington Beach, California.
That is part of the name, so you do have to do that every time you say our name. You have to go. Like,
all right. Yeah, okay.
Andrew, can I say as a fan of the show that, is that did you cover your window with a chasuble clipped to a curtain?
Indeed, that's what it is.
I'm willing to send you some cardboard California you can put over that window just for these broadcasts.
It just works so well. Wow.
Andrew, I'm very glad to be with you. Thank you for having me.
So far, it's been a pleasure. We have Pastor Will Smith from Fort Wayne once again from Resurrection. I will say I am Pastor Andrew serving Resurrection in Rochester, or more specifically, Irondequoit, New York.
You don't know my name or where I'm from, so just let's skip past that.
We have Pastor Jeff Steele-Steber in Avon Lake. This week it's a bit of, I want to say, a bit of a lighthearted discussion. Pastor Jim had a wonderful suggestion to talk about maybe some of our funny stories from, service, funerals, weddings, etc.
Yeah, so it started off, with Andrew and I trying this out, and I don't want to say they were more serious, but the reality is we're also having fun. It brings some lightheartedness into our lives as well, and hopefully everybody out there enjoys it. But the rule is now, if we add another square to this, the person who shows up has to bring a topic. And so that's why Pastor Jim, whose signature, Jim, is your signature still a circle, basically?
It is, yeah.
Just a circle.
That's what I love about this group is when they gave us churches, they weren't called, this is your first call. They go, this is probably your only call.
Let's see if you can make it.
Wow. It just proves that God can use anything.
Amen.
Yeah, Numbers 22. Am I right? Well,
yeah,
Numbers
right.
22. So the topic, Andrew, we were saying is provided by Jim, is just memorable stories, and kind of what Jim was explaining before we hit record, which was even
we're doing.
Yeah,
we're
which
recording.
Was even crazier before we hit record. But it's some of the stuff situations we find ourselves in as pastors that people might not realize. You see us up there on the weekend when we're doing in-person service, and you get this version of us, but sometimes we're in situations that are comical, creepy, odd, amazing, all those different things. And so we figured Jim's idea was just to share some of those nuggets, if you will.
A window into our lives.
Yeah, just a little bit of the fun, the things we remember. So who would like to go first? Andrew, you have notes, so I don't know if you're prepared to go first.
I do.
All right, would you please, I want to lift you up on the pedestal you deserve to be on. Would you please offer?
So we'll start out with, because I have all these notes as I
We're only doing 2. Pick 2.
Pick 2.
I'm telling you right now. So if you needed to whittle it down, do it now. Look, he actually is.
But
just do whatever. I don't care.
No, some of these were, I just looked through things, like I just have these names, and I actually have all the sermons, which apparently I thought wasn't very, remarkable or whatever. But then Will was like, I don't even know who I married last time or whatever. So, so I just all of these memories of both funerals and weddings, and I guess maybe I'll start with kind of a funny one, or a couple that were just a bit odd. In my first church, which was also a very rural church, although we were right by 2 lakes in Michigan, where all of these people would come because they had cottages. They'd come up from Detroit, and they had these massive mansions on these lakes. And for some reason, they didn't realize there were like other people besides tourists that came there. But yeah, we were there year round. Anyway, you didn't have to go far outside the town to find, I mean, some serious rural places. And one of the first weddings I did was for a very young couple, and they had, they used their parents' backyard. And it was the first time I had a wedding with, I showed up, and all the chairs, I don't know where they got them from, but they were the folding chairs, but every chair looked like it was ready to fall apart. It was so full of dust. And no one dressed up, including the wedding party. So I was the best dressed with a very sweaty clerical shirt on. And I honestly wore jeans because they wanted me to be comfortable. But
yeah, you know, being outside in a collar and hot denim, that says
Yeah.
comfort to me. Way
Well-
to go.
well, some of us could handle that. But
I can't.
but it was just such a scene because it was just such a scene because they had built out of found spare like pieces of wood a step for me to step on, but my view was about 80 people sitting on these rusty chairs, and the wedding couple, he wore one of those like armless
Please tell me it was a T-shirt with like the graphic tux on it.
no, that's what his dad wore.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what his dad had on. No, he had on one of those like undershirts.
Mhm.
I don't want to use a slang term for it, but he had one of those undershirts with no arms, and it was not clean. It was very stained. And then she had on some of a nice dress. But my view was all of this, and behind in the woods, there were about 6 old cars in pieces, and the decorations they put up were on their humongous propane
Propane
tank.
Oh,
And they had painted it like a pig, and they put just married in like rainbow paint on there, and it was just such an experience. And it was on one hand it was a true blessing because I mean, absolutely wonderful couple, wonderful family, and actually it was one of the best receptions I've ever been at with food, because it was in this like 1-car garage, and they just had, it was a potluck and everybody brought food. I have never seen so many baked beans in my life or eaten them. And of course, I stayed for about an hour after that, and I'm glad I left because those beans were active. And but it was just it was probably like the 3rd wedding I'd ever done. And of course, just being a young minister and being in that, you know, it's not the picture that you have of a wedding.
No.
But it was just so wonderful. And then the neighbors came out. Apparently every night they came out and drank a 6-pack on their back porch, and they came out to drink their 6-pack. And I cannot repeat, or I could, but I won't, what they
Clean
said.
it up.
when
Just
they
clean it up. Say it, but clean it up. We want to hear. You can't lead into a
Um,
story and be like, I can't say it. So
Okay, so I won't swear, but they're just like, they're like, holy spit, it's a wedding. Let's go over there. And so not only did they bring their 6-pack, but then they grabbed a 40-pack of beer and they came over. And it was just absolutely, it was wonderful, but it was just so different than maybe what we expect, you know, because I thought of that, and then I thought of another wedding that I did.
Wait, can we ask some questions? Just
yeah,
follow-up
yeah,
questions?
we have to. Yeah.
Because so he was wearing like this dirty undershirt tank top.
Yeah.
Did he have like a flower, or was he wearing pants? What was he wearing for pants?
They were
Was he Porky Pigging it, or was he?
he was not.
If the propane tank can do it, so can I.
He wore cut off denim shorts, like
You want to be
jeans that he
comfortable.
cut. Yeah, he cut the
Were you-
legs off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was he really tan?
Yes.
Yeah. That is. Yeah. And so this wasn't the rehearsal. This was the wedding.
This wasn't
Yeah.
the rehearsal.
No, what's really great, we did the rehearsal in the church. So we had this rehearsal in the church, and they're like, all right, so, and I didn't know we weren't getting married in the church until the rehearsal.
Oh, wow.
So we go through the rehearsal, and they're like, all right, so
Yes.
when we do this in my backyard, the dad saying this, then it'll be similar. And I was like, wait, 1 minute, what? And he's like, yeah, here's the address, we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, because you probably would have done the rehearsal at the house
Yeah, you would think.
had you known the wedding was going to be at the house.
Yeah.
That's why we
Yeah.
call it a rehearsal, because we do it like we're going to do tomorrow. They're like,
Yeah.
no,
We're not finished.
You.
We haven't found enough wood yet for your stand. Yeah, we have to wait. It's
Who's
not
gonna
ready
wash
yet.
the beans if we do this at the church?
It was something else. It was something else.
Did you feel, because I think one of the great things about our work is you can have those crazy moments and then see a genuine affection between people and say, hey, this is going to work out, or they really love each other. But sometimes not. Sometimes you go, oh my, this is horrible. Was this one that you had hope for in terms of the marriage and the wedding, or was it one that you're like, well, I don't know?
Well, at first I was like, yeah, I don't know. Okay. Honestly, it was because it was so early in my ministry. I was just like, well, I want to get another wedding under the belt. I want to get another one of those in there.
Were they members of the church?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, until their wedding.
Right. They were members to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what that's like. Yeah.
And then they pay you in scrap metal. They're like, you can take those chairs. And
Get the bottles over there worth 5 cents a piece. Yeah.
They're like, do you see that car in the background? That one's yours. We're going to fix it up for you. No.
Oh, man.
No,
Yeah.
they were great. Very,
Yeah.
very nice young couple. I hope they're still married, but yeah.
Have any of you actually ever looked up to see if people you married? I don't know how you would do it, or if you don't remember anybody that you performed a wedding for. But if for any of us that do, have you ever looked up to see whether they're still married or no? I have not.
only if I knew them personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few
Okay.
people know Will's door is locked from the outside right now, so he can't go.
They let me out in 43 minutes.
You get an hour a day
I get to
Yeah.
play in the backyard.
for an hour a day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So
Calisthenics.
that is one good wedding story. Do we have? Andrew has a slew of others. If we don't, but does anybody else want to jump in with? I have an eerily similar funeral story
Oh,
that I want to hold on to that.
Okay,
because
that'll be
maybe
fun.
bookend it. Yeah.
That's a good mission.
Yeah. So.
I want to hear yours. Tell us yours, Will.
So, wedding story. When I was first coming into ministry, I sat down with my mom and asked her about, doing weddings and whatnot. And she said, there are some pastors who will say, I won't do that wedding because I don't think it's a good deal. And she said, but I was taught by my supervisor that you do the wedding anyway because they're going to get married anyway. And at least if you do the wedding, there's an opportunity for God to get involved. And so I had one of those situations where it was a young couple, and I was doing this as a favor for some family. A young couple, the young lady had gotten pregnant after they had been together for like a week and a half.
Oh.
And they both decided that they needed to get married.
For how long?
Had told them a week and a half.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. And everyone told them that it was a bad idea. Don't do it. If this is just a bad deal. And, but they were hell bent on getting married. And so,
Wait, can we make that heaven bent if we're adding a little God to this, or no?
no, because it'll get you where you need to be. So,
Okay, all right, go.
Did you notice
So-
that Andrew very visibly sanitized his hands when he started talking?
You'll find that he does this regularly.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
anytime anybody mentions Indiana or something to do with Indiana, Andrew automatically starts cleaning his hands. It's a very weird thing.
Yeah, it's like the book of Leviticus over there.
Stay away from the shrimp. Yeah.
Wow.
So
All right, Will. Yeah, go.
I ended up doing the premarital sessions at the Taco Bell in that town because it was the one place that was open, and if I bought them Taco Bell, they would sit down with me.
Nice.
So I bought them Taco Bell. We ended up doing the wedding at her parents' place, which was out in the country. And I got out there, and there was this boom box that they were going to use to play the music for everything.
Yep.
And I kid you not, the guy that had the boom box was holding it over his head every time.
Like say anything style.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like John
And,
Cusack, DJ service in rural Indiana.
But you know, everything just kept kind of coming together, and every time I was like, you know, God, this is no. I mean, I went to school for this. You know, I went. Like, there are people whose reputation depend on me not doing stuff like this. But the kicker is they were like, okay, Pastor, we've got your spot up here. And they had taken this trellis material and kind of made an arch. And I was supposed to stand under the arch. But directly behind the arch, earlier that morning, they had rounded up all their trash. And there was a smoldering trash heap behind me. So I was literally standing in the gates.
It was like Golgotha. Yeah, it was Golgotha. Or not Golgotha, it was
Like,
yeah.
The children of Malach.
It was under an archway of chalupas.
Yeah. So there I was, and I had to make the call, and I was like, okay, yeah, I guess we're going through with this. And God, you have a terrible sense of humor.
Yeah, God has a great sense.
Smoldering pile of trash is a warning sign.
Yeah. They were divorced 6 weeks later.
Oh,
So-
well, their marriage lasted longer than you would have assumed, though.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
That is amazing. That might beat my funeral story later. I'm almost feeling bad that I held on to it. Yeah, that's really
Standing at the gates to Gehenna.
yeah.
Wow.
Now, so this kind of brings up something that I don't. All right, so when I first started out, I required couples do premarital counseling, and then I kind of went after a few like members to get married kind of things, and it seemed like I was putting in more work than the couple. I got to the point where I was like, you know, if you want to do premarital counseling, I'm happy to do it, but I don't require it, because it just seemed like it was me doing it to do it, to say I did it, and it had really no effect, and they weren't really interested. So is that something? I mean, granted, if I have a chance to go to Taco Bell and just eat some Taco Bell, I'll do and chill with some people. But is premarital counseling something you guys require or no?
I'm kind of the point that you're at, where I just don't really see the point. I'll tell them, like, if you're interested in discussing how your faith informs your marriage, I'm happy to talk to you about that. Because I tell them people change so much that I think the most helpful advice is you just need to learn how to forgive people, practice forgiveness. How do you learn to practice forgiveness? Because marriage, they also always tell them, I go, marriage is the cross. So they,
a lot of good stuff. A lot of good stuff.
But that's funny, because then when I don't want to, I go, yeah, I don't know. Then they really want to start talking about that because it has a touchstone of reality. I'm not just sure how useful it is, though. You know, we've done like family system stuff, investigating your family of origin, blah, blah, blah. And I go, the stuff that's going to mess up your marriage is so deeply imprinted in you, you don't even know it guides your decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 sessions with me is not going to solve anything.
Right. Like, you come from this smoldering pile of trash. And I can point to you the parts that are burning, but I don't know what started the fire.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Billy
gosh.
Joel. Yeah, that's so just to back up for a second, that was also the ceremony. That wasn't the rehearsal, that they lit the garbage pile.
They had burned the garbage like that morning or the night before, and it was still smoldering.
So it was like the Olympics. Like somebody ran a quarter mile and like the torch and then like lit it, and that was like the opening ceremony. No. Okay. That would have been majestic.
That would have been majestic.
That would have been. Yeah. No, but and it was a huge backyard. They could have put that
anywhere else.
It was
anywhere.
It
anywhere.
Who wants to bet that the pile of garbage was already there? And they're like, where do we put the archway? And someone's like, well, I already got the shovel right over there. Let's just do it. You know, and they just,
Moving equipment there.
yeah, everything. Yeah, I'm not carrying those chalupas any further. So they'll be right by the garbage.
You sat in the Taco Bell. You didn't take them through the drive-through.
No, we sat in the Taco Bell.
I didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know pre-COVID anybody sat in a Taco Bell. I've not been inside of a Taco Bell since I think 2001. So that is amazing. No, they weren't allowed in your car. Is that the reason? Or no, they were, but you're like, I'll meet you.
I was meeting them on neutral ground.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Good.
That is
Very good.
yeah. And all right, Jim.
I'm changing my name really quick.
All right, yeah, do it, please.
All right. So my story is a little crazy because, I don't normally, and this would be another question, maybe like what Jeff asked, but I don't normally do like outside weddings because I don't want to be a clerical prop, where I just show up and I'm like the clerical prop. Because I always feel like this could be another conversation, but I always tell people in my church, I said there's a fine line between being a pastor and being a high-priced escort, where they just want the girlfriend experience, but they don't want you to represent anything except for kind of a fun companion. So I really don't like doing those extra events, but I had a family that was very involved in our parish, and their daughter started a wedding business. And she goes, Pastor Pack, I'd really like you to help. And so, so I meet this couple. They're going to have the wedding in their backyard, like you said. I go to the house. This detail will become important later. Like the dad's in a wheelchair. The entire patio is filled with ferns and aquariums everywhere, ferns and aquariums. He's like, hey, we're really glad you're doing the wedding. It's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And this would be another conversation piece too of like when couples want to write their own vows. And I always go like, well, do you want to write your own vows or do you want to just like make a statement of love? Like, I love you and I've never loved anyone like you. It's like, that's not really a vow. That's just a statement of love, which we can do. Right. You can write a statement of love. That's fine. So I go, if you guys are going to write your vows, just make a promise. Like you're making a promise. That's the whole point. And they're like, all right, Pastor. So we get to the day of the wedding. It's in the backyard. They put down this huge concrete pad and I show up and the groom's not there.
Obviously.
And it's hot. God, it was so hot. It was in this town called Horsetown, USA. It's the name of the nickname of the town. So we're in Horsetown, USA, and it's just hot as hell. It's summertime. And I go in and I say to the bride, I'm like, hey, like, you know where he is? Like, all your people are like baking in the sun in your backyard because you spent all the money on the concrete pad and no shade. Is he coming? She's like, he'll be here. I don't know. I think he's going to be here. And then someone goes, he's here. So we like all ran out to the front yard. So he like rolls up like all dirty, and the best man is like trash, and he's like F you and you're this and you're that, and he just starts cussing everybody else. This is blah blah blah, and they go okay, and then she's on the porch like of her house screaming, going, you ruined this day for me, you ruined everything. What are you doing? I hate you. And then the best man looks up at her and goes, F you, I told him never to marry you, I hate you. So then the dad in the wheelchair starts wheeling down the driveway, and he's like, don't you talk to my wife like that. And he's like, come on man, let's do it right now, let's do it, let's fight. And the wheelchair's like, all right, let's go. Like, I go,
stands up on the wheelchair.
He's like, no daddy, no, don't. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the father of the bride in a wheelchair is going to fight the drunk best man. And so we go, hey, where were you guys? Oh, we were up in the mountains and we wrecked our car and we got it stuck and blah, 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 blah. And I go, well, look, the best man can't be in the wedding. Like, this dude's trash. He's very belligerent. He's cussing everyone out. So he's like, all right, hey, man, you can't be part of the wedding. F you, I don't want to be here anyhow. Come on, bro, let's go. He starts taking off his tux in the driveway. Takes off all his clothes except his underwear, throws them on the ground.
Wow.
Lights it on fire.
He gets in the truck and starts like drunk driving up the street, stopping the truck. F you, driving up the street, coming back. Hate you guys, come on, bro, let's go. But now everything's just like total, everyone's baking. It's 100 degrees in the backyard. The dad in the wheelchair is like really mad because he almost had to fight the best man. And the groom is just standing there like. So I go up and I say, hey, what about you? Are you drunk? Like, can we actually get married? Like, can you get married? And he's like, oh, no, I'm good, man. I'm like 98% sober right now. And I go, you're 98% sober. He's like, well, I had a little weed, but 98. I was like, how does 2%? How can you identify 2%? But I go, all right. So then I go, do you want to marry him? She's like, yes, I love him. And then I go, do you want to get married? He's like, that's why I'm here. I'm like, all right. So now everyone's been waiting in the backyard half an hour. They're all sweating. They go in the back and there's this dude, this little skinny guy sweating. And they're like, Travis, get over here. And he's like, what's up, bro? And they're like, you're the new best man. Get out there and put on that suit that's in the driveway. And this guy goes and puts on the suit and he looks like,
You're the new best man.
he has like a long, the suit's hanging off his shirt and fingers and everything. And we're walking into the wedding and I go, man, this isn't a real great start to your wedding. And he goes, that's pretty much how we do it. I F it up and she cleans up after me. I go,
Those were the vows he wrote?
No.
Oh,
No.
So we get to that part of the ceremony and I said, now we're everything's fine. And I go, all right, so now we're going to have the vows. And he's like, oh. He reaches in his pocket, takes out the tiniest piece of paper that he's folded 250 times. Yeah, and he's like, hold on.
Origami.
He's like unfolding. And then finally, and he had taken very seriously. I go, look, it's a vow, it's a promise. So like, we can say a statement of love. So he holds it up and he goes, I solemnly swear. Yeah, there's like an affidavit. He wrote like an affidavit for a witness statement or something. So hold right hand. I get all my stuff and I'm like, this is why I don't do these. And they're like, you're not staying for the reception?
Yeah, that's the best question.
I was like,
That's the best.
No. I'm not staying. Oh, we spent all this time getting the candy bar ready. So I take that step. I go back to my office. I throw away the vows and everything. And then the bride calls me like the next week and goes, wasn't that beautiful? And then she goes, do you have the vows we wrote? I want to frame them. And they were in the trash in my desk. I was like, oh yeah, I got them right here on my desk. And I'm reaching in the trash. Oh, here they are. Here you go. So that, earlier we were asking when you said, do we know what happened to some of them? I've always wondered.
Yeah.
Did you fold it back up? Did you fold his vows back up for him so that you got it?
I tried. Like one of the things when they're kidding, they're like, you can't fold this paper more than 7 times. Like, yeah.
See, and that's something else that makes me think of. So like at first when, I think this was happening when we were in seminary, when people could go online and take a 10-minute class quiz and get ordained to do weddings, I was like, this is a mockery of everything we stand for. And now, like, hearing these stories, I'm like, yeah, no, that's what those are for. Like,
Yeah.
those are for, like, you want your friend to marry you legally, go for it. Do that. Like, and I've had that for a couple weddings, but more so for funerals. I've had situations where, the family has basically come to me and said, we're not religious at all. We don't want any of that Jesus stuff, but we need a pastor to do this. And it's like, for weddings in particular, I want to be able to say to them, I never do, but I want to say to them, like, you don't need a pastor. Like, somebody can get in a license to do it. You can go to a judge, like, you don't need me to do it. Especially when they're having them outside. Like, if they needed the church building, that's one thing. But when they're having them in their backyard, like, it just confuses.
What would have made that better would have been a smoldering pile of garbage.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say, I thought the story was leading up that the concrete had not set and the father of the bride got stuck in the concrete in his wheelchair. But that would have been
a great end.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, there's this weird residue where people say, I need a pastor. And I've had people call and go, I want my child baptized, but I don't want water. I don't want Bible.
Yeah.
It's like, then you don't want that. And they're like, well, then what is it that I want? They want something.
Right.
Yeah. Or they go, I want a wedding, but nothing religious, nothing Christian. I'm an atheist. And I was like, well, why would you call me? I heard you have a nice singing voice.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You'll do the wedding toast, won't you? Yeah. You'll do the prayer before the meal. Yeah. That is something.
One of our former colleagues, or one of our colleagues who will remain unnamed from seminary, started doing a lot of online wedding stuff. And you can go online and read the reviews from the people. And a lot of them are just that kind of clueless stuff where they're like, oh, he ate a little too much at the reception, or why is he here, or whatever. Like,
yeah, that I don't normally stay for receptions. Very rarely do I stay for a reception.
Yeah, only if I'm like a friend of the person.
Right, because more often than not, I'm not. I'm there to serve a purpose. Like I have a function to perform. And why did you sigh or groan? I don't even know what that was right when I started answering.
You're all wonderful, but I always have the dilemma of, do I want a free meal or not? So
Don't you feel like you have to give up like 5 hours?
Yeah.
And
No.
if you think about it, you're like, I can't give up 5 hours a weekend watching people dance to the cha-cha slide.
yeah, but here's the thing. So if we have a wedding, there's a wedding, and they're like, oh, the reception's here, and it starts at 4:00. I'm like, what time is dinner?
Yeah. You cut
And
right to the chase.
so if it's at 4, and if they say anything more than 4:45, I'm like, yeah, I can't make it.
You're like, I'll swing by the banquet center, pick up my meal in a to-go bag.
Yeah, no.
Have them prepare a plate, put it outside. I'll get it.
No, honestly, for a long time, I would go to that because I somewhat felt obligated. And then I was talking to another colleague of ours, and she was very blunt, and she's just like, "Why the hell would you do that? I never go to those." And she's been a pastor for, I think, like 25 years, and she says, "I've never gone to a reception. Why would you do that?" And I was like, and I actually said that. I was like, well. Sometimes I do like the food. I mean, maybe it's at a nice place, but I don't. Yeah, I usually don't do that anymore unless I know the people.
Yeah, I just.
And then you're like, do you realize the last wedding I went to, there was a propane tank painted by a
Can you top this? If you can't top that, then
you're like,
don't even bother.
Beans? And they're like, beans at a wedding? And you're like, okay, I admit my experience is limited.
Yeah.
That's all weddings can be.
There was very good lasagna too. I'll say that.
Well, and then the other thing with the wedding, with the reception, if you don't know people, if you're just the pastor, then you're put at a table with people who don't know you, and you're just going to be either fielding pastor questions most of the night, or you're going to be ignored, or it limits how much you can drink. I don't know. There's a bunch of different things that go through that equation.
It's like speed dating because you're like sitting there and they're like, oh God, I got seated with the pastor.
Right, like
stuff late.
Yeah.
And then you have to be like, I'm not crazy. Like, and then they're like, so what are you and the kids? It's like, no, we're Lutherans. And they're like, Martin Luther King Jr.? No, not Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, he's pretty nice. Like they thought we were gonna just talk and be like, you want to hear my favorite Bible verse?
Yeah. And the people then know how much the married couple does not like them because they're like, we got seated with the pastor. Yeah. They're like, this was obviously the bottom table. That's where it was. So not Will. Will's fun. So people enjoy being around Will.
I was going to say, like, especially early on in ministry with 3 kids at home and all that student debt, wedding receptions were a cheap date for Sue and I.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would go just because it was an opportunity to get dressed up and go somewhere where we didn't have to cook anything. And we would go and we'd have fun. It's like, holy cow, this is awesome. There's, especially if it was an open bar. I mean, holy cow, and then the cake.
Yeah.
I'll go for the cake every time. It's like, wedding cake.
Tonight, she's like Taco Bell. You're like, no, baby, I got a wedding.
He's like looking on community chat boards for weddings to do. He's like, I got to find my next fix. Yeah.
It's like Wedding Crashers, but
for pastors.
Different.
For pastors.
So you bring up a good point too, which is that like oftentimes, and I've had this situation a lot in Southern California, we get called into situations where the people's wealth and what they're living in is so different than anything we would have because we're essentially middle class or upper middle class or lower middle class or whatever your package was or whatever. So we get called into these situations that it's like, oh, I would never be here except for my work.
I experienced that quite a bit too, where it's like, gosh, I would never be at this place. I would never, never know it was here or any of that. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same with like meals after funerals, for some funerals, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to this country club. and and it's like so exclusive, and I'm like, oh well, yeah, okay. I mean, honestly, I think that's also part of a bit of our humanity too, coming in there to just be like, yeah, I want a good meal,
Yeah.
In the Midwest, Indiana anyway, the funeral dinners are still done at the church.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Oh yeah,
in other parts of the country, but that was and COVID has kind of put a damper on that. But showing up at the funeral dinner, that's just standard process, standard practice. You go to the funeral dinner because it's at the church, and you have members of the congregation there. Funeral dinners are different than wedding receptions, I think.
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I'll go to. Yeah, you can't be like, okay, do a funeral and be like, all right, see ya, and the meal's at the church.
Yeah.
It's.
Oh, I beg to differ. You can do that.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I mean, I will do the. Well.
And Jeff, you wonder why nobody watches your videos
Yeah.
from your church.
No, I'm fully aware. Nobody ever said, "Do you know why?" Yeah, I mean, I'll do. So in my first call I had, so I was only in my first call for a little over 2 years, and I had 22 funerals in the 2 years, and I had a 6-month stretch of time where I didn't have any funerals. So for a year and a half. And you good? Is that a muffin? What are we doing there? What are you munching on now? Is it a blueberry muffin?
Eating apple.
An apple.
A
Okay.
healthy
All
choice.
right. There you go. All right. Make sure you wash your hands.
Yeah,
So
it's in Indiana again.
yeah. Yeah. So, but doing so many of them, and a lot of the funerals I did were once again for people that, if I did 22 of them, 16 of them were for people that weren't actually members of the church. They were connected through like a family member, or the funeral home reached out and said, "Can you do this?" So for staying for meals, I would do like the opening prayer, and kind of mill around for a little bit, but then after a while, usually not even after a while, after a short period of time, make my way off. And I actually got to the point now where if we're doing, that just reminded me of another funeral story. If we're doing
A funeral story.
2 more, yeah.
So she's telling him it's almost time for your playtime outside.
That's right. Hey, Hannah. Is that Hannah? Hey, Hannah. She was a little peanut.
I'm gonna put your shackles on.
Yeah. So
Avert your eyes, gentlemen.
why? There's a dog coming in too, or what?
Uh-oh.
So
Is she coming in to like take your money or something in there?
Will, blink twice.
Can you switch to your dad so we can get the real dirt on what his ministry's like?
Yeah. Hannah will be like, no, he's a really good pastor.
Hey, say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Hannah.
Have fun with this loser.
Wow.
Wow.
Someone's not getting Taco Bell tonight.
That's my baby girl. That's my baby girl. Yeah.
Now the internet will know.
You really regret telling her, hey, say goodbye. She was already out that door. That'll teach you. Bye.
Right?
Hi.
Yeah. So for funerals, as we were saying, for funerals, yeah,
Bills know, Will.
yeah,
And with
a
your
lot of them, not knowing the people. But I've gotten to the point now where if we do the service and then we go off site to do, the committal part at a cemetery or what have you, depending on how far away it is, if they're going to have a meal back at the church, sometimes depending on the cemetery, I'll have to like wait around a little bit longer. I can't just leave right away. And so I'll say the prayer for the food at the cemetery.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, look, when you get back, you've already spent an hour in church. You spent this much time doing this. We've prayed. We've said the Lord's Prayer 17 times already. When you get back to the the fellowship hall, feel free to eat. And one of the first times I did that, I got back to the fellowship hall, and everyone was just sitting at their tables quietly, no food. And I was like, what is going on? And so I walked into the kitchen where the church ladies were, and the one said, Pastor, they got back and they tried to start eating. And I told them, you have to wait until the pastor gets back here to say the blessing. And I was like, no. So I had to say an additional blessing. But yeah, for a couple, this isn't my favorite story. It's going to pale in comparison now, but
So far, not mine either.
yeah, I will give you Panda Hand so fast. So they'll call you.
If you're not careful eating that apple, you're going to give yourself Panda Hand.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, don't attack me. So the in my first church, they would for a lot of them, we would have like the 21 gun salute, or whether it was American Legion or VFW would come out, and they got to a point like where I would get there and the color guard or whatever they're called would say like, do you care if we go first, or if you like, do you have to go first, or can we do our thing first? And I'm like, I always tell them like, I don't care. And
I really like that you just called the honor guard the color guard
from like high school marching bands.
Yeah.
I have a lot of military experience. Yes, the honor guard. I'm sorry. I'm glad you've never misspoken in your life.
It would be cool though, if you had a group of teenage kids with flags.
That would change it completely. If like in like cowboy boots marching around.
I've done some funerals where that would be completely appropriate.
Yeah, I'm sure in Horsetown there's got to be. You got to have that.
Those of them are going out closed.
Yeah, it's like a Macy's Day Parade around here. So we're all changing our names probably right now. All right, so so it turned out that the reason they kept asking to go first was the honor guard. Whenever they would do a service from the VFW or the American Legion, they would get a free chip for like a free drink for doing this service. And they were going, and they would just originally they were going, and they'd get them in the like they could just show up and be like, "Yep, I'm doing a service later," and the guys were getting tanked before coming to the service. And so they had to change it so that nope, you have to have already done the funeral before you can get a chip. So they got there and they were like, all right, Padre, can we move this thing along? Can we shoot the guns off? We got some drinking to do.
My alcoholism is rampant.
Yeah. The other thing,
can we stop for a minute and say, Andrew, what does that mean?
What?
I don't know if that means wearing boots or you have a flag.
What? Yeah, I thought about being in the color guard in seminary. Don't you remember that?
Yeah.
You
wore pants for that. Yeah,
Yep.
That's what that means.
I think that's when you were doing that liturgical dancing.
Yes.
Yeah, it was called the Lafat Flag Crew, right? Yes. So there was another one in my first 2 years of ministry. That's where that happened. But another cemetery where they would have a guy would bring his dove out, and he'd at the end of everything he'd be like, "And this dove symbolizes." I don't even know. I saw him so many times, but I never really listened. And he would then release the dove, and the dove would fly away, and everyone would be like, "Oh, wow," And he ended up being asked to not come back because 2 of them in a row, the dove would like fly, and I'd ask him, I'm like, how does it work? And he's like, oh, they're like homing pigeons. They just fly back to my house. But the birds would fly, and like 3 minutes later, they'd come back. They'd just come right back to him, and so the people were not happy with that because they were like, no, my loved one's spirit's supposed to be flying into heaven with that dove. So it's not as good as a garbage thing. All right, I'm gonna try mine. Yeah. So the one was very similar to Andrew's, and it's actually kind of similar to your wedding ones too. But mine was for a funeral, and it was held offsite. It was a Saturday night. The service, it was in the summer. The service was at like 8:00. And in a rural area, and it was one of those rural areas, and I don't know if they have them in your states or not, where multiple people.
Areas?
No, this part of a rural area. This part of a rural area.
Got it.
Where multiple members of the family live on the same property, and so there's like 3 or 4 trailers. Just like the parents live over here, the kids live there, and so. I pull in, and I ended up having to park this really long, driveway. There's a bunch of people there. It looked like I was at a Bob Seger concert because everyone had like cut off sleeves, tall boys of like Natty Light and, Miller and smoking and the trucker hats. And I get down there and kind of similar to what you guys were saying, they had set up a tent. So it wasn't as hot as Jim's, but they set up a tent. They set up about 12 chairs in the tent. And then everybody else had chairs like 50 yards back. So
Thinking about the part that goes under the tent.
Oh, I know where I was, Jim. I know exactly where I was. Moving along, Padre. All right. So ultimately what happened was I messed up. There was craziness. I messed up with the sermon because the guy hadn't really been, a member of a church anywhere, hadn't really, practiced his faith that much, but he was a really good guy. Had a few people give eulogies attesting to that fact. There's a lot of cursing through them about what a great guy he was. How he was so good that if he was like over your house, such a good friend, if he was over your house and helping you fix your car and he got too drunk to drive home, you would let him stay at your house, so really good guy. So I picked the gospel lesson where it talked about whitewashed tombs.
What?
I didn't realize it. This is one of my areas where my attention to detail was what came back to bite me.
Like a reading Sodom and Gomorrah.
Don't turn back. Yeah. But I basically was just trying to say, like, it's not what's on the outside. On the inside, he was a good person, and so it doesn't matter if you clean yourselves up. So one, the reading was kind of weird. Two, it was insulting to everybody there because I was saying basically you're all dirty, you're not clean on the outside, but you're good people.
Wow.
But it's like when they gather people together for the service, like, all right, everyone come in. 4 people came into the 12 chairs. Everybody else stayed out from under the tent. There was a big bonfire thing they had set up that they lit as soon as the service was over. Music was queued up by the DJ, kicked off right when I was done. But the best part of the service was afterwards. The widow said, "I'm gonna go into the house to get you a card to say thank you." And I said, "Okay." So I'm just waiting there, and this guy comes up to me who I did not know. Same apparel, the cut off sleeves, everything. Had the cigarette just dangling from his lips while I was talking. Like, I don't know if he knew he was smoking or not, but the cigarette was in his mouth. And he came up to me, and he had definitely been drinking. So we had to have one of those really like, hey, I need to talk to you real close because I've been drinking conversations. And so he shakes my hand. He's like, I just want to say that was a really good job. That was a really good job. And I said, oh, thanks. And he goes, he was a great guy. I said, yep, sounds like it from everybody. Speaking sounded like he was a great guy. And he said, he looks me dead in the eye and he goes, he was such a good guy. He was Jesus's brother. He claps me on the shoulder and I was like, all right, brother. All right. And he goes, Jesus's brother. And then he just walks away. And I was like, all right. Kids doing backflips off of coolers. It's like, with the bonfire going and the music blasting. And I got to do a funeral for Jesus' brother. She gave me the card. She looked at me and she said, are you going to stay? And I said, I apologize. I can't. I have to get going. It's kind of late. And I left. So yeah, that was my...
He wrote the book of James? Did he write the book of James?
Yeah.
Oh,
He was the lesser. Yeah, he was definitely a works, not faith kind of guy.
I love how your Bible image serves to both insult everybody there about their hygiene.
Yeah. You're not clean on the outside, people. That's obvious.
Yeah.
But
Like
you're
those
good.
things.
It's now it goes into the mouth. Am I right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did anyone respond to that? Just be like, what?
No. Luckily, nobody was really paying attention to me. Like, the people that weren't under the tent didn't stop what they were doing while the service was happening. They continued on, whittling or whatever they were doing.
Oh.
I don't know what they were doing, but they did not observe the funeral service.
Yeah.
But it was a very awkward thing. Have you guys? Yeah, go ahead.
This was your first call?
Yeah, all those stories are most of my stories are the first
Wow.
time. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my first call had a lot of fun. Not at the time. Not at the time. I did not enjoy it, but looking back, had a lot of fun little fun
Once the
stories.
healing took place.
Took me 3 years, and then I was like, wow, I actually can look back fondly on that.
Yeah.
So have you ever any of you ever done a funeral for somebody who's not part of the congregation that you then like makes you say to the funeral director or whatever, like, don't call me again? Like, I'm doing them for members or people that I know directly, but if have you ever had the funeral home call you up and say like, hey, we have this,
Oh yeah.
would you be willing to come out to the cemetery and do a graveside? Has anything ever caused you to say like, I don't want to do those anymore?
Right, Andrew. Sounds like you have something.
Well, it's probably written down in your notes, but go ahead and check.
No, I've never had one where I say, yeah, don't call me again. I'm just like, I need to take a hiatus after this one. And the funeral director's like, yeah, okay, I totally understand. No, I have several funerals. What?
Give us an example. Oh, you had that.
No,
awful
yeah.
video.
So there's a story I tell. One of the first, well, not one of the first, but a funeral I did early in ministry. I would go and visit this woman, and she has a son. Well, yeah, she had a son that I think he had some PTSD from being in the military. So, and he hated any kind of religion. So I would come over to visit her, and she was always so happy because other pastors hadn't come to visit her and everything. But he would come home while I'm there, and he'd just kind of like curse me out under his breath. Like, I don't know why the F you're here, and God doesn't exist and everything. And she's like, oh, don't listen to him. He's just angry at God. And I'm like, oh, okay.
I'm going to pause a second. How great would it have been if he would have said that and you would have been like, you know what, he's right. And you just would have got up and walked away. She's like, don't listen to him. And you're just like, no, he's pretty convincing arguments.
No.
Thank you, sir.
So the thing is, so she dies, and the funeral director, are standing there, and everyone's coming in and getting ready for the service, and I'm, greeting them. And the funeral director sitting next to me, who was a total character. But I'm getting ready to walk in there, and he's like, all right, I don't want to alarm you, but just so you know, the son said if he doesn't like something that you say, he's going to get up and stab you.
Yeah.
And I was
wait. The first part of that comment was, this is like an angel saying, do not be afraid. So the first comment was, I don't want to alarm you.
Yeah.
But, and then the rest.
Yeah.
What would have been
You
worthy of
tape
being
a phone
alarmed?
book to your stomach?
What?
You like put a phone book on your robes?
I immediately just like start sweating because he's like, he goes, I don't want to alarm you, but he may get up and stab you. And
We're not going to stop him.
Okay. And he just goes, all right, good luck. And then he walks away. So like the whole time, and the thing is, the whole time the son is just sitting there like this, and he's
shaking
not
his
looking
head
at me, and he's got like this humongous knife on his belt, and I'm just like, oh, okay. And then we get done, and I'm like, all right, he didn't get up and kill me. So, and then he stands up and he walks up to me, and he looks me in the face, and he's like, my mom really loved you, and I'm gonna be honest, I think you're a good guy. And then he just walks away.
He didn't give you a love stab? He was
No,
like...
no, but to go back to like the meals, that meal was at the church, and someone said, are you going to come to the meal? I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be there.
It would have been sad if he had been like, hey, you did a good job, my mom loved you. And then when he hugged you, he stabbed you.
Yeah, that would be
like,
great.
and they're both your faces like in the movies. You were like, and like we wouldn't have known which one of you got stabbed by it, and then you would have separated, and
then
there's
he
blood.
just
And
holds you as your body.
Shh, go to sleep, sweet prince.
Sleep.
Yes.
And then the last thing is the funeral director standing over your body going, you weren't alarmed, and then you just pass out from blood.
Wow, yeah, that's real good.
That's how we wrap it up.
And then your last words, you just hold up your hand and go, save me some beans. This isn't a wedding.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Wow.
That's a crazy story. That is insane.
Yeah, because I was just like, oh well, because I didn't see this humongous knife. I mean, it was the one with like the what is it, like the ridges on the back and everything. I mean, it was like a straight
Rambo
up
knife.
yeah, like a straight up Rambo knife. And I'm thinking, how the heck did he just like walk in here with that?
Was he wearing fatigues as well or anything, or a headband, or
No, he had on
an undershirt that was dirty?
he didn't he had he was dressed up for him, because whenever I'd see him, he'd come home, and this is
Whitewashed
the
him.
other thing, he would come home and he had one of those like, I don't even know, like those shirts, but like this part here was just all mesh.
Like a rave? Like he was going to did he have a pacifier in his mouth too, or?
Well, it looked like he just came back from like some 80s beach party. And
Did you have was your gospel text that day whitewashed tombs?
Oh,
see, that I don't remember.
oh
I just
man.
like too that the funeral director didn't go, sir, please no weapons, and or sir, that's inappropriate. He's just like, good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Well,
Good luck.
you know, the thing is, I learned because I became a chaplain at the local hospital, and of course in Michigan and well other places, hunting is a big thing. Well, there are all these hunting accidents, and so people would come into the ER because like this one guy, he shot himself in the foot, and so his buddy brought him in, but he walked right through the emergency room doors, and they both had their rifles with them, and no one stopped them. And so this guy's walking around. You think my buddy's gonna be okay? And he's just like holding his rifle, walking around the nurse's station. And I come in there because they call me, and I'm just like, I walk in, and I was just like, what the hell is happening right now? And I'm like, why did these guys are walking around with guns?
I take back everything I've said about every other state in our union before today. Michigan, you can walk into an ER
What? Not
with
anymore.
rifles. Well, no, that I'm assuming was that the last straw?
Well, I went to the director of the hospital, and I knew her. I'm like, yeah, so this happened. I understand that it'll be hunters, but shouldn't there be some kind of safety procedure?
Yeah. Leave your gun at the door, like a
And you could just see her go, oh yeah, maybe we should do something,
The nice thing is if you'd been shot or stabbed, they would have named a law after you.
right?
yeah.
The
Yeah.
Dukin prohibition on funeral stabbing.
Yeah.
The E.A. Gukin alarmist.
Well, I just
You
love-
Dukin at a funeral?
You got
you
Gukin.
got gookin. Yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
don't want you to be alarmed. That's going to be a trigger for me now. Anytime anybody ever says that to me, I don't want you to be alarmed, because they're not going to say you might get stabbed. No, like I've had crazy stories, but no one's ever threatened to stab me for something I said. You know,
Yeah.
that is,
Oh, now you're lying.
yeah. Well, not
Now
in a
you're
church,
lying.
not in a church setting. Not in a
Okay.
church
All right.
setting. Yeah.